In these next three problems, we're going to look at some special cases in multiplying binomials. In this first one, we're going to multiply the two binomials 6x plus 7 times 6x minus 7. Now the first thing you have to do is you have to be able to identify the special cases by the given problem. So let's see what the trick is here. Notice the entries in the first position in both binomials is the same. The only difference in the entries in the second position in each of our binomials is that one's positive and one's negative. That's the pattern you're going to look for. These first entries the same, the second entries opposite signs. It doesn't matter if this one's negative and this one's positive, just as long as they're opposite signs of each other. Now, why is this considered a special case? Probably at this point you're thinking to yourself, you'd like to FOIL because we have a binomial times a binomial. What happens in this special case is as follows. Let's start to FOIL, but let's not write everything down. When we start to FOIL here, we'll multiply 6x times 6x for a product of 36x squared. Again, remembering that x times x is x squared. Now, we're to the O and I in FOIL. If I do the outside, and I'm not going to write down this product, but just keep it in your mind, the outside numbers give me negative 42x, 6 times negative 7. Outside, negative 42x. When I do the inside of FOIL, 7 times 6x, I get positive 42x. So here I have negative 42x, positive 42x. Without writing that down, I'm sure that you can tell that negative 42x and positive 42x equals 0. So we have no outside-inside term. Now let's go to the last part of FOIL. 7 times negative 7 is negative 49. So the special product 6x plus 7 times 6x minus 7 just becomes the product of the first two, 6x times 6x, 36x squared, and the product of the second two, 7 times negative 7, negative 49. Now the only danger in learning these special products is that you may start doing them every time you see a binomial times a binomial. But remember, we only do this FL to get these products. Really, this is the first two product and the last two. So we only do FL in FOIL when we have this very unique situation of the first entries the same and the second entries opposite signs of each other. So just keep that in mind. Now, if you don't recognize that right away and you go ahead and FOIL the entire problem, that's okay because you would normally get in the middle positive 42x and minus 42x, so you would get the 0 in the middle anyway. It would just take you a little bit longer, so if you remember this special product, then you're going to save yourself a little time. Let's look at our next special product. Here we have 5x plus 4 quantity squared. We know that that means 5x plus 4 times the same binomial 5x plus 4. Now if you memorize this pattern, it's going to save you a little bit of time. If not, go back to the FOIL method and you'll get the same results. But again, if you memorize this little pattern, you're going to save yourself some time in the future. To multiply a binomial times itself, here's the pattern. It's the first number times itself. So 5x times 5x is 25x squared. The middle term is going to be the product of these two multiplied by 2. So the product of these two, 5x times 4, is 20x times 2, 40x. I'll say that one again because sometimes that's a little confusing. To get this middle term, 40x, I multiplied these two together, 5x times 4, 20x, and multiplied that product by 2 to get my 40x. Now the last term in this special product is just the second entry squared. So 4 times 4, 16. And there we have it. So again, if you forget to do the special product here, or if maybe you forget the pattern, go ahead and write it out as 5x plus 4 times 5x plus 4. Do the whole foiling method and you'll still get the same results. Let's look at our last special product. It's very similar to the previous one. In fact, we're going to use the same rule. Let's see if you remember how to do that. When we're squaring a binomial, or in other words, we're multiplying a binomial times itself, the first entry is the first term times itself, or in this case, 4a times 4a, which is 16a squared. Now the second one is we're going to multiply these two together, 4a times negative 9b, which gives me negative 36ab. Take that product and multiply that by 2. So I'll say it one more time because this is the hard part of this special product. 4a times negative 9b is negative 36ab. Take that product, multiply by 2. So negative 36 times 2 is negative 72, and then we have the ab. And then the third entry in our special product is just the second one squared. So negative 9b times negative 9b is positive, remember, because a negative times a negative, two negative signs, an even number, positive product, negative 81b squared, because we have b times b. So the special product here again, the first one squared. This one here is the product of the two entries multiplied by 2. The third entry is the second entry squared. That's our special products here. Don't forget, if you recognize these two entries are the same, this and this, the first entries of each binomial. The second entries are the same except for just they differ by the sign. One's positive, one's negative. All you have to do is F and L in FOIL to get the product there. So good luck with your special products. Remember though, if it's too much for you to memorize, as long as you FOIL, you'll get the same results. Now let's look at multiplying polynomials when they're presented in a vertical fashion. So here we have a trinomial, 3x squared minus 2xy plus 4y squared, multiplied by this binomial, x minus 2y. Now, even though it may look a little strange to you, presented in this fashion, think of it like this. Do you remember multiplying things like this in grade school? Well, if you remember this, that will help you do the problem just like this, because the procedures are really exactly the same. So here we go. We'll start here with negative 2y. We're going to multiply by positive 4y squared. Negative 2y times positive 4y squared is negative 8y to the third power. Now we're going to multiply negative 2y times this next term here. Negative 2y times negative 2xy is positive 4, let's write that down, 4x, and notice we have y times y for a product of y squared. Finally, we're going to multiply negative 2y times this first term up here, 3x squared. Negative 2y times positive 6x squared give me a product of negative 6x squared y. Now remember this one was positive, so I'll put that plus sign in between those two. Now we're going to do that same procedure with the x. We're going to multiply x by all three terms up here above. X times 4y squared is 4xy squared. Now before we write it, we're going to look at the terms we have, and notice right here I have another 4xy squared. So multiplying these two together, I'm going to write it right below there as 4xy squared, so my like terms are lined up in this vertical fashion. Now these next two, x times negative 2xy. When I multiply these two together, notice the product is going to be negative. I have my 2, and I have x times x, x squared, and then I have my y. And notice it lines up under its like term. Finally, I have x times 3x squared. X times 3x squared give me a product of 3x to the third power. 3x squared times x, 3x to the third power. So now, remember this part of multiply? Sorry, that's not such a great line, but do you remember this part here? Now we're just going to add each term in the vertical fashion. Now it doesn't matter here if we start from the left or the right because there's no such thing as carrying over with these polynomials. So let's go ahead and start here on the left-hand side. 3x squared. Add these next two. Notice I have like terms, -6 and -2 for a sum of -8. Keep the variable portion the same. We're adding here. Keep the variable portion the same. We're adding here. So notice we only combine the numerical coefficients. The variable portion remains the same. If you can identify the difference between adding and multiplying, that's going to help you a lot when you work with these polynomials. Okay, now again, we're adding these two, 4xy squared with 4xy squared, for a total of 8xy squared. Now again, notice what I did is I added those numerical coefficients. The variable portion, it remains the same. And finally down here at the end, I'll bring down, I should say, my -8y cubed. So the product of this trinomial with this binomial happens to be this polynomial down here at the bottom, which is 3x to the second minus 8x squared y plus 8xy squared. Notice these are not like terms because one has x squared, one has y squared, and finally minus 8y to the third. The most important thing to remember here is to make sure that in this first portion when we're working, we're multiplying these variables together, so we have to use our rules of exponents. Once we get down to this portion, we're now adding these together, so we have to just add like terms by combining numerical coefficients. As I said before, if you can keep those two rules straight or those operations straight in your mind, you're well on your way into algebra.